it's much too early in the game. But I thought I'd ask you just the same. What are you doing New Year's Eve? Wonder who
This is Where We Live from Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Catherine Shen. Happy New Year, everyone! Today on Where We Live, we reflect on 2024 and look ahead to the year to come. Whether you're going into the new year with resolutions or plans, promises, or just vibes, this hour is for you. We'll talk about our New Year's resolutions and how we're thinking about going into the new year with intention. New Year's resolutions don't have to all be about getting fit and healthy or starting a gratitude journal, although they can certainly be if that's your jam. Joining me today is the one and only Kyone Wolf, host of Audacious with Kyone Wolf. Wow! Thanks for joining us, Kyone.
Happy New Year. Thank you.
And with us as well is our treasured philosopher and deputy director of audio storytelling and talk shows extraordinaire, Robin Doyon-Aiken.
Hello, Happy New Year.
Welcome to Where We Live, Robin.
Thank you.
So it has been quite a year for us here at Connecticut Public. At Where We Live, we welcomed new team members like producer Chloe Wynn, who we absolutely love. And we said farewell to treasured ones like longtime Connecticut Public employee Katie Tolarski. And in my very humble opinion, 2024 was the best year for Where We Live yet. And if we can, we're going to make 2025 even better. So Kyone, I want to start with you here. What stands out to you when we're looking back at 2024?
Well, I appreciate you mentioned Katie Tolarski. She was my mentor when I first got here, and she's so special and powerful and wonderful, and we love her a lot. This year was really cool for me. I learned transcendental meditation back in January, and that was really, really powerful. I had a meditation practice leading up to it, but it was sort of ebbing and flowing, and I wasn't really committed. So TM's been beautiful. And possibly related to learning TM, I quit drinking back in May, and that's been truly transformative. And this year, I inherited a couple thousand Russian bees.
Wow.
So I'm a beekeeper now.
And I've been following your bee journey.
Thank you. Yeah. And I've done 2 harvests. It's a lot of work, but it is incredibly gratifying. I have a lot of respect for those bees. So it's been a big year for me.
It's been a very big year for you. And what about Robin?
Well, I will say, I just totally endorse Kyone's beekeeping. And it's not just because Kyone has shared some honey with me in both seasons.
Yeah.
So I've appreciated that. And also, honey and beekeeping is actually good for your mental health. I learned this on an episode of Seasoned that when the bees vibrate, your own human vibration kind of gets in sync with theirs, and it's like a cat purr. It's calming, and so I love that.
Wow.
And I was looking back at what January 2024 looked like for me. And I must have been on a health journey because, or it was just like also a milestone year for me. I turned 50 in 2024.
Nice.
So during the month of January, I made appointments for a physical, I had a breast exam, and I also had a colonoscopy.
Yay! Happy
Yes.
colonoscopy.
Right? So, and I also had, I saw a note in my January calendar from last year of pick up glasses. So that means I also had an eye exam previous. So I was really on a health journey, and I encourage this. So even if you just use the new year to just make lots of appointments and kind of get organized in that way, totally a good practice to do.
Well, that's a really practical thing to do.
Yeah.
And it's a nice way to start a new year if that's your thing. If you want to sort of start off on a fresh start and have some answers maybe to questions you may have about your own body, that seems to make sense to me. And did either of you accomplish your New Year's resolutions or intentions in 2024? And can you share with us what they were?
I don't know. I don't remember it at all. It's been a weird couple of years. So I'm free. What about you, Robin?
Well, I one of the things that I really believe in when it comes to New Year's resolutions is that January 1st or December 31st is not the only time when you should be making goals for yourself. So one of the goals on my list last year was to become a better radio host. But things changed. I had a life quake. I had a different job come summertime. So it meant all right, so I'm not going to be doing the host thing. I'm going to be doing this other editorial job. And so I had to build some new goals around that. And so listening becoming a better listener, becoming a better editor, becoming just a more patient person and a more collaborative person. All of those things became new goals for the rest of 2024, and I'm still working on it.
Well, as your colleague, I can say there's a lot of accomplishments there.
Yeah, you're doing great. You're doing so great.
We definitely are witnesses of that. And Kion, are there any programs or interviews that really stood out to you this past year? I mean, that's a hard question because there's so many good ones.
Oh, yeah.
And Robin's been great. She's my new supervisor and editor, and so you've been so great to work with. You've expanded all of our minds and our abilities to. This year we've had a lot of audacity.
Yes,
we had animal psychics. We talked with a guy who won a $28 million Powerball. We got to talk to Nobel Prize laureates, and my producer Jessica Severin DeMartinez. I mean, she contacted dozens of Nobel Prize laureates, including President Barack Obama, to invite them on the show, and it was nearly impossible. We got two amazing people. We had a guy who ran for president after changing his name legally to literally anybody else.
That one blew my mind.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And we also had some more challenging shows. We spoke to two people who are products of incest in their families, and also a person named Legion, who was so abused in their early years that they wanted to shed identity as a human being and began transforming their body via surgeries and implants and piercings and modifications to look as much like a dragon as possible. And that was both a really inspiring episode, but also really difficult. This person was in a lot of pain. But we also met Jada Starr, who's the niece of Dolly Parton.
Amazing.
So to talk about what that's like. And we had our very first audacious live show and tell.
Yes, that
down
was
in
really
Stamford,
fun.
which means I just got to tell you, stay tuned. Coming up next year, we're turning 5 years old. We're going to have a live show soon, so keep your eyes out for that. Having live shows thrills me because there's no net. There's just me and you, and let's see what happens. And so I'm just very excited for that.
Well, and it sounds like we're all not super hardcore into the idea of having like 1 or 2 or 3 New Year's resolutions. So is there a shift in that mindset during this year going into the new year, Robin?
Well, I do actually try to write things down because I feel like it's not real unless I can look at it on paper and be like, oh, okay, now I'm really working toward this. And also, too, you can put it away and then bring it back up again, like when you're like, wait, what was I thinking I really wanted to be working on? So I do try to make a list, but I make a long list. And it's a little bit overwhelming, but I also feel like if I can do 3 things on the list, then I feel accomplished. So I don't want to beat myself up by being like, oh, I haven't done everything. And I also think that when I make this list, I always include something on the list that I'm actually like 99% of the way already done.
Nice.
Right. So you can cross it off early.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's kind of like cheating, but it works
It's
for me.
motivating.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, we love lists, I think.
Sure. Oh,
Right?
yeah.
What about you, Kion?
You know, I keep it fluid. It's to your point, Robin, about like December 31st or January 1st doesn't have to be the day. You know, leave yourself open. I feel like life is just so fluid, and I've learned in the last couple of years that things can happen in life that are very surprising. And so I don't really keep tough track of it, but I like at least the gesture once a year of pulling my camera back and looking at what I'd like to be more mindful of.
So a best friend and I decided a couple of years ago that because there's so much anticipation leading up to January and everyone and their grandmas are making resolutions and life changes and all that jazz, we decided that February 1st was going to be our new year.
Awesome.
So
All right.
that's our game change.
So do you write it down? Like, what do you do? How strict do you keep it?
Not strict at all, really. I mean, I wish I can pinpoint the moment, but I used to make lists. Especially as a younger person. I used to make lists of things that I want to do, whether it's like physical activities, health related, or, life goals or whatnots. But last year, I just decided to go with no plot, just vibes, more coffee, more fries.
Yay! I love that.
And I feel like that's going to be what I'm going to roll into 2025.
Love it.
So that's where I'm at. And so, we're here talking about new old traditions during the New Year's. And there's so many different traditions across the world celebrating a brand new year. So in Spain, residents attempt to eat 12 grapes during the 12 strokes of midnight. So that sounds a little stressful to me, but many people do a celebratory New Year's toast. I actually do like a fun New Year's toast. So do either of you have any traditions or things that you try to do to kick off that new year?
I have one. First of all, we always eat Chinese food on New Year's Eve. I don't know why. It's an old tradition that my husband and I have when we were first, so this is like 25 years ago when we first got together. We didn't have very much in our first little house, little apartment that we had. So we didn't even have a table. So we used to have Chinese food on the ironing board and watch the ball come down. So that was part of our tradition. And I have a very classic thing that I do every single year, and that is just we do watch the ball drop, and we do have some prosecco or something, and then also I get a New Year's kiss. So we start the year with a kiss.
Well, that's a nice
Lots of
place
people
to
do
start.
Yeah. Yeah. When I was a little kid, I remember, so I grew up knowing ever since I was kindergarten, I knew I was gay. And this was in the 80s. And so I thought I would never be loved because I'm probably a rarity because I didn't realize there were more of me. And of course, it wasn't legal. So I just, not to be loved, but to get married. And so I would always look at the kissing on Times Square and just feel full of longing and sadness, but also joy because this is my favorite holiday. So in my family growing up, we would take pots and pans, and I brought some with me. So you take spoons and pots and pans. And do you want to reenact it with me?
Yeah, absolutely.
10,
9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
It feels so good. So imagine I have 3 big brothers, and we would just bang on those pots.
I feel like my aura just changed.
Yeah, you and me both.
It's real now.
Well, why is New Year's your favorite holiday?
I'm so glad you asked. So here's the thing: it's like everybody, this whole planet is full of lots of different kinds of people, and there's all these religious holidays, and we sometimes judge other people, and we judge their religions, and we just are so full of that. But for most people on planet Earth, when one time zone at a time, we are all agreeing to mark time. It doesn't have to do with religion or beliefs of anything other than the existence of time as we know it, which of course, as we know, is not necessarily true in all quantum planes. But I just love how one time zone at a time, one day, we all share this agreement that we're going to just take a moment to see it and feel it together. I love it.
Well, there is something really beautiful about watching the time zones change and seeing people celebrate that same goal of starting a new year. And I think over the last, I want to say decade or so, we're kind of seeing a shift when we're talking about resolutions. I mean, even just talking about now, like we've had different changes in our lives of how we see this. And I think it used to be more sort of stereotypically, it's all about fitness and health related goals, but more focused on weight. But I think there's definitely been a shift. I'm starting to see more fitness goals centered around sleep, around cooking more at home and getting up to date on those medical appointments, like you were saying, Robin. So what are your thoughts about these kinds of goals? Are you seeing a shift yourself or your friends and family? What are your thoughts?
I love that we are not focused on, this year I'm starting a diet on January 1st.
Right.
I love that we're moving away from that, partly because science has proven that we just don't lose weight in the way that we think we do. That we've been told all of our lives that you just need to eat less or you need to have more willpower or all that stuff. We know now that science is saying that that's not actually true. So why set yourself up for a resolution or a goal that you actually can't meet? So I've never been a person that starts the year with I'm going to lose 10 pounds. But I do love the idea that self-care is a part of, this thing that when we write it down, we might stick to it. And so the idea of getting more sleep and making your doctor's appointments, doing the big things that are bound to make you feel good. I'm for it.
What about you, Kyle?
I wholeheartedly agree with you. And I think that it's not even so much about I want to lose this much weight or I want my body to look this different. It's just, I firmly believe that at the moment our soul escapes our body at the moment of death, we're not going to be thinking, oh, I look great. No. Oh, I wish I'd lost a few before. No, I don't think that's what's going to be going on in our souls when that happens. And so and to your point, I think this mental health is everything. And so getting more sleep, I recently, leading up to this new year, I started writing down after my meditation in the morning, writing down a list of best case scenarios. So, of course, for today, one of the things on my best case scenario was, recording with you on January 1st and having a really great Where We Live with my friends, and it goes so well and everybody's so happy and I feel really pleased with my performance and my presence. And then what's cool about this list is first I write it and then I speak it, like I read it out loud. And I think the act of writing it and reading out loud, I've been noticing some creepy things have been happening ever since doing this. For example, I wrote down like a surprise big check comes in the mail. And it didn't happen to me, but it happened to someone I know that day. So like little things. And I'm fine with that. If it comes true for someone else, that's cool too. So writing down best case scenarios is my prescription.
Yeah,
manifesting.
I was just going to say that. And you mentioned mental health. That's another, I think, area of focus for a lot of people, especially nowadays. I think we're a lot more comfortable talking about it to each other. And so people are making more mental health focused resolutions instead of the physical health or both. And this also, but it includes exercising. Mental health and physical health, of course, are very much interconnected. So exercising more, meditating more, seeing a therapist or focusing on spirituality or taking breaks from social media, any or all or none of the above, whatever you're choosing to do in terms of your mental health resolution. So what do you think about that idea of the idea of mental health resolution?
They're wonderful. And I love how they kind of feed into each other. So like if you have a goal that is like, I think I should spend less time on social media, and you have a goal that's also, I need to get more sleep so I feel more energized every day. Like those two goals go together. You can kill two birds with one stone with some of these wellness resolutions or goals. So I'm like all for it. A lot of times people want to get more sleep and they'll have a goal of like, I'm going to do dry January. Well, guess what? Those things feed into each other. So if you do one, you're going to probably have a little bit more success with the other. So. Right. I love those feel-good goals. That's what I call them, feel-good goals. I'm gonna have a list of goals that are going to help me feel good, and get some bang for your buck.
Yeah, and Kion, earlier you mentioned meditation and this manifestation. What else? What else do you have to add to the sort of focus on mental health?
Well, it's funny you talk about dry January. Since I've been sober since May, and I would say I was a moderate to light user of alcohol. And I didn't think I had a problem with it, like most people don't, right? It's just, I can have a glass here and there, it's no problem. And then nothing happened, there wasn't any catastrophic anything. But when you talk about getting more sleep and dry January, wow, quit drinking, even as a light user. Try it, and just watch what happens to your sleep, your pocketbook, your wallet. Every single part of your life, there's nothing drinking doesn't touch. Even light usage, there's nothing it doesn't touch. And so I don't know how people do dry January and then go back to it, just because to me, it's so profound, even as a moderate to light user, what a difference it makes in everything. So, yeah.
If because we're saying like, we don't make those weight goals, but if a person does, and I'm like totally... I'm all for a goal that's like, I wish I'm going to work toward my own health, or I want to be stronger this year. That's a goal that I've heard. And if like not drinking is a thing that works for that goal, like you might find that when you stop drinking, or maybe your goal is to like, I'm going to stop eating when I'm not hungry, or I'm not going to snack after a certain time. Some people have those goals.
Right.
You might also find that it feeds into it contributes to the success of the goal of, wanting to lose some weight or feel stronger and healthier.
It does feel like they're all interconnected. It's very much not just one thing. Right?
Yeah.
It's not that black and white.
If you have any anxiety in your life at all, drinking alcohol is making it so much worse. And so experiment with it. You'll see if you do a month sober that you'll see how it affects.
There's actually a study out that's called hangxiety.
Completely. There are little holes in your memory you don't even realize you're making when you even have one drink. There are these holes in your memory that you're making, and your brain registers it, but your consciousness doesn't. And so when you wake up the next morning, you've got that sort of like, oh wait, how did last night go? Like, I don't know. I don't remember that. Why don't I remember people's names so well? I don't know. Like these little things add up. And it's just so if you have problems with anxiety, alcohol is exacerbating it more than you think. And I look forward to anyone who takes that dry January or just tries it out. You'll notice a difference, and the staying away from it, the clarity becomes your new drug.
Well, we'll certainly be inviting friends who are doing that to share with us their stories. Would be super fascinating to see how it impacts different people. And so before we got on this show, we reached out to our fellow colleagues here to ask about if you're a resolution maker or do you have any goals for this year. And our colleague Shannon Sullivan Murnane, who is our senior leadership giving manager, shared this year that she's focusing on friendships. And here's what she had to say.
One of my personal goals for 2025 is to be more connected with my friends. And one of the ways we've decided to do that or work on that is by doing something called Waffle Wednesday. It started as a TikTok trend where you send a short form video to your circle or your group chat and just kind of talk about the mundane, everyday life things that are going on. We've been doing it for about a month now, and it's just been so great. I've learned so many random things about my friends and their kids, had so many laughs, and really felt more connected than we have in a long time. So as we move into 2025, it's something that I want to continue doing and be really intentional about.
So I'm seeing some nodding around the table here. Thank you so much, Shannon, for sharing your resolution with us. We love it so much. And I think we are also seeing more resolutions based on friendships and relationships and family and spending more quality time with the people that we love. And Kayon, why were you nodding?
I'm nodding so much because I recently had a conversation with one of my brothers, and both of us agreed that we're not the kinds of people who reach out to hang out.
Okay.
Now, for me, I have a massive community, and they reach out to me. It works out great, and it's not because I'm selfish. It's just the way I'm wired. It's not because I don't want to hang out.
Right.
I do. It's just the way I'm wired, and so is my brother. And so it got me thinking about, like, while I accept this about myself, and while it's still working out great for me because I have so many friends, it would be cool if even just a text to be like, I love you and I'm thinking of you so much, like without expectation of hearing anything back. I'm not saying I need to hang out with you. Like, I just need to tell you I love you so much. That I can get down with. And so I've already started doing that. And New Year's is a great time to take that opportunity. I think it's almost expected,
right?
You know. But even if it was June 3rd, it doesn't really matter. The practice of just saying I love you, I miss you, I cherish you. I'd like to get better at that.
I mean, I do love the spontaneousness. Yeah. You don't really need a date for it. But there is something to be said about, because there's expectations on New Year's Day. Yeah. And if you receive that text, or if it's from somebody that you didn't expect, I'm sure the warm and fuzzies will really hit you in a different way. Robin, why were you nodding?
Well, I don't have a big community, but I have here's the opposite of that. I have such a small family that I have made my best friends my family. And I have a squad. I bet Shannon does too.
Love a squad.
Yeah, I love the idea of Waffle Wednesday. We will make up any silly excuse to try to put something on a calendar where, like, we are definitely going to connect with each other. So, you know, I love that. And I also love, one of the things that Shannon said was priority. We make it a priority. So maybe if making a New Year's resolution feels too much of a commitment for you, just write down 3 things that you want to prioritize this year. And if your friendships are one of them, great.
Yeah, I love doing that in the workspace too. So Work Bestie, my senior producer, Tess Terrible, who we all love and adore, we'll actually take time and put in our Outlook calendar that we're going to split a cupcake at 10:30 on this date.
Yes.
I love it.
You know?
Be specific too. I am a big believer in like the more specific you make your goals, the more you
What are we doing here? What are we expecting, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
I love
so we
that.
want to be thoughtful when we're doing this. So we're celebrating the new year today on Where We Live, and Kayon Wolf and Robin Doyon Aiken joins us in studio. But before we go, I want to share a quick note from Colin McEnroe's senior producer, Lily Tyson. She shared with us her resolution is 2024, my intention was to have more fun. I did it. But in 2025, my intention is to have even more fun. We are here for this. I love this resolution so much. Thank you so much for sharing with us, Lily. And listeners, we want to hear from you. Find us on Facebook and Twitter at Where We Live.
Happy New Year, Happy New Year. May we all have a vision now and then of a world where every neighbor is a friend. Happy New Year, Happy New Year. May we all have our homes, our will to try. If we don't, we might as well lay down and die.
This is Where We Live from Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Catherine Shen. What's your New Year's resolution? If you don't make resolutions, maybe instead you have a goal or an intention or what we like to call a vibe for 2025. Still with me is Connecticut talk show host Kion Wolf, and she's the host of Audacious with Kion Wolf. How many times can I say Kion Wolf? I will never be sick of it. Thanks for joining us today, Kion.
Thanks, my pleasure.
And also with us is Robin Doyon-Aiken, who's our Deputy Director of Audio Storytelling and Talk Shows. Thanks, Robin, for being here too.
Thank you. I love starting the year with you two
Oh, this is so fun.
and our listeners.
We should just do this every year, really.
Yeah.
A new tradition, talking about traditions.
yeah.
So, Kion, earlier we touched a little bit on this. You're not really someone who creates New Year's resolutions, but you're a fan of intention. So how do you differentiate the two?
I love that. So resolutions feel so firm, right? Whereas intentions feels a little bit more fluid. And I feel like all of us are just little kids in adult bodies, right? And if you tell a kid firmness, like, don't get me wrong, it's good to have some structure, of course, with kids. But I feel like as the little kids that we are, we want to have some sort of loosey-goosiness in our life. So besides the traditions like banging on pots and pans and being sad about not getting kissed, I love the idea of just letting things flow and also knowing as an adult with experience that things are this world is pretty unpredictable. And so to be flexible, to be able to pivot and trust your gut as you go. So yes, intentions over resolutions, hundo.
And have you had years where you had real success with those intentions? What did those goals look like?
No, it's all been so loose that it's lost itself and dissipated into the ether of existence.
And what about this year's intentions, or going into next year's intentions? I should say.
Oh, what are my next year's intentions? Well, I feel like 2025 has it's going to be a big year just because there's so much going on in the world, right? I think what I've learned from previous years that have been sort of unpredictable is the best thing that I can do is to focus on my love, my peace, and my presence. Meditation helps with that tremendously, and just sort of maintaining that presence. So as the difficulties come at us, I can be more, resilient.
And Robin, what about you? Earlier you shared some lists, some appointment making and whatnots. But are you a resolutions person, intentions person, goals? What is that going to look like for next year?
I have made like resolutions/goals. And I put it like that because I do feel like Kion, that resolution is so too strict of a word. And I don't want to set myself up to be disappointed. And I want to like beat myself up over like not. One of my resolutions and goals every year is always to like not be a perfectionist or to like be more forgiving when have more grace for myself, have more grace for other people. That perfectionism that is a real affliction. So I try to not go there and be there. But I've also noticed about myself that I've had these like resolution eras, I'm like a Taylor Swift era person. So like in my 20s and 30s, I noticed a lot of my resolutions were around like home improvement projects. I was thinking of this because Frankie Graziano, the wonderful host of The Wheelhouse, was telling me the other day that he was up until way past midnight painting cabinets because it's been one of his goals to like have this house project. And so like I remembered like, oh yes, when I was Frankie's age, I was doing that with my husband. Like we were trying to get our house in order, more like literally. But in my 40s, it was more like I had some life quakes. My father died. That was the first big death that I'd ever experienced, and my first experience with grief. And so, like the year of my 40th birthday, I had a goal of saying yes to everything because I've realized for the first time that life is short. That became a real thing. And so I just wanted to experience everything I could. And so I was saying yes. I said yes to every invitation. I said yes when people needed like volunteers for things. And like I just found like that was great because for every invitation, I had parties to look forward to where like, how sometimes your first inclination is to say no. But then I was like, no, you're not allowed to say no. You're saying yes to everything. So I would go to things and I would be happy that I did.
Right.
And then, so I would volunteer for things and like I ended up making friends because I volunteered for things and I met people like even my kids' the parents of my kids in their class. Like I started to really lean into that. And now, so I'm like a big milestone person. This is my 50th year on the planet. So I have some resolutions that are around kind of like, oh, what do I want to do to make sure that I'm savoring everything? What do I want to do to make sure that I'm expanding in ways that I didn't before? Like time is finite. So I write really specific goals for myself. I don't want to write a goal that says like, this year I'm going to try to be a better parent. My goal has to be so specific that I say, this year I am going to be a good parent for my daughter who is 21. So like I'm thinking about the ways of like, oh, this is not a little kid anymore. The ways that I approach being supportive and being present, they need to be different now that she's a young adult. So I make goals around that. And I find that I feel successful because I'm always like making progress on those things. And they're not just so general that I'm like, did I really, have I been successful in that or not? Like I'm so specific that I know if I'm meeting my goals or not.
And I do think we are kind of moving away from the more bigger, broader, and the vague goals, like you were saying, into the more specific goals, because I feel like conversations about this has changed so drastically over the last years, I think decades, that we're definitely focused more on the quality over like you're just trying to make the list really long of things like you want to improve on versus you're actually working on things that you want to make change in the world. And just to kind of bring it into a different area, a lighter area, because Kayon, you're also a fan of what you call the absurd, lighthearted goals. Can you share what you mean by that?
Well, I think absurdity is important to me.
Yes.
It's part of my life. It's part of the way I'm wired. I've written down for your amusement some absurd goals. May I?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Become ambidextrous, but only while eating snacks.
You know what? I actually tried doing that. Not the snack part, but the other part.
Start collecting cat whiskers in a jar. That was inspired by Chet Raymond from our live show. We did a show and tell, and she brought her cat whiskers in a jar. I've already started.
Amazing.
Name the squirrels in your yard, but they have to be monosyllabic and they have to be different every time. Train your mind to herd clouds. Write poetry to your favorite kitchen objects, and it doesn't have to be a love poem. Create an annual step count and stop when you're done. Collect sounds in jars. Host a whisper shouting competition. Host a dramatic yawning competition. And finally, professional library frolicking. Those are some absurd goals, but in terms of lighthearted, I've been thinking more about posting on social media more often.
Okay.
Which strikes fear in my heart. On the one hand, I want to post more. I have a lot to say. I like showing things off. I like sharing my opinions and my ideas and my observations. I enjoy watching other people do it too. So on one shoulder, I've got an angel being like, yeah, express yourself. It's free. People, all generations leading up to now would give anything for this sort of outlet. And then I've got this sort of devil on my other shoulder that's like, it's cringe. Nobody wants to see it. Who do you think you are? Plus, working in public radio, I represent this organization. And not that I think, ever say anything that would ever get me in trouble, but it's just like, I represent this organization, right? And I just don't want to risk it. And so I feel like I can trust myself to make responsible decisions about what I say. But it truly is that sort of, don't be cringe. You know, that's the biggest devil on my shoulder. That's like, don't be cringe. Nobody wants to hear it. Everyone sees what you're doing when you post. And I don't know where that came from because I've always been really self-assured and confident, but here it is.
Embracing the cringe.
Embrace the cringe.
Embrace the cringe.
Nobody knows what they're doing.
And listen, Kayon, you got so much riz. I don't feel like you got to worry about that.
Can I please have the recording of you saying that
Absolutely.
and just have it as my grade?
You're welcome. I am actually kind of stuck on this idea now. I have a new show resolution is next year, or when I say next year, that's already a new year guffaw. We're already at this year. Is this year we're going to whisper, shout, host a show.
Ooh, Jesus. The entire show.
Yeah, start sucking on those lozenges right now because we're going to really need it.
For shout!
Exactly. So, Robin, I want to toss this question to you. How do you feel about having a word or a phrase or a theme to carry the year?
I love that. Even better, the more things that we can come up with that are just like to make our lives a little easier, a little better, a little more fun. So like instead of a resolution, if you have a word, that was recommended to us by the amazing Meg Dalton, and I so trust all of her ideas. So I was thinking about this today, and I was thinking that a good word for me for 2025, for this year, would be listen. That's my word, because to Kion's earlier point about how we have so much going on in the world, I was thinking that it would be good. And I was also inspired by a show that Frankie did a few weeks ago that was about civility. And he had on the author of a book that was about sort of like connecting with people in a very polarized country and society that we are. And I was thinking that if I listen more, then maybe I can have my mind opened about people who are different from me. And that will never be a bad thing. Right. So that would be my word. And I feel like it's really good for people who don't want to have who feel pressured by a resolution or something. Like, if you could have a word that inspires you, that you go back to, that you remember when you're like maybe your word is going to be like patience, right? And you're in a situation where you actually need to like muster up some patience. You can remember like, oh, this is my word, my mantra for this year. And you might put yourself in a different headspace because that's your word.
Although, just real quick, you remind me, there's a phrase I heard once. Ask for patience. God gives you a traffic jam. So,
yes.
My word would be shine. Shine.
I love it. That could relate to your other goal of like wanting to be more social on the interwebs.
And connecting and social and posting on social, and just remembering that just because I want to shine more doesn't mean that I won't be in the presence of other people shining or helping amplify other people's shine. Like, we can all shine.
You want to know something hilarious? The moment you said that, I just connected something in my brain. So last year, I learned shine. I think it's a Chinese slang now in internet culture. It's actually to encourage people to post on social.
Stop it.
To share about the shining moments of your lives. It's the context is not to show off, what you're doing, but it's more like to share the happy moments, because we don't share those moments enough.
Wow.
Yeah, especially online, because I feel like sometimes when you go online, you don't know what you're going to get, and there is, some darkness out there. So if Kion were posting more, I just feel like that would be a safe post for me to read that would like only make me feel good and not some of the cringier stuff on the web.
No, I just thought that was amazing, that sort of the connection, that's a very universal thing, and the fact that it's with social media. So I think you've got something going on, Kion. And so we have another thing that's coming up. We're going to bring in a very special guest, one of our most favorite peoples of the world, our one and only Dylan Reyes. He's our fantastic technical producer. If you've been enjoying the music you've been listening to, Dylan is the man. We want to get your thoughts, Dylan, on New Year's resolutions, themes, and words. So give us what you're thinking.
Thank you, Catherine. It's a pleasure to be here talking instead of listening. And I just want to say that picking the music for the show is one of my highlights of my day. So if you love what I do, thank you. If you don't like what I do, you can email me at colin@ctpublic.org. When I'm thinking about the new year, I'm really trying to provide myself a framework, because I live a very regimented life. That's kind of the nature of being in an on-air position, as we all kind of are. And so when I'm thinking about a New Year's resolution, I'm really thinking about, like, how do I want to govern small decisions that I make every day throughout the year? This is going to be, I think, my third year of viewing New Year's resolutions like this. Before that, I didn't even think about them, because I view time as this kind of like meh thing that's not really relevant most of the time. But I saw this really interesting video a few years back that was about this idea of a framework, and that's where this all started. So 2 years ago, my theme was health. I really wasn't happy with where I was at with my body. I was alarmed by how easily I ran out of breath running up 5 flights of stairs. And I just wanted to make decisions that made me feel better about where I was physically. And kind of like what was said earlier, having a framework means that when you make small decisions throughout the course of your year, you're able to more accurately stick to the intention of what you want your resolution to be, because it's always in the back of your mind when you're making a decision throughout the entire year. It's a lot easier for you to remember one word like health than it is for you to hit a very specific number that is, easy to fail at, especially if you're not an expert in what you're trying to do, like dieting or exercise, and you're just creating an unrealistic standard for yourself. This past year's goal was just to survive. I did a really big life transition. I'm usually very bad at those, so I gave myself some grace this year. Just take care of yourself. And now that I'm kind of out of this transition period and into this job, I'm thinking a lot more about free time. You know, that time between running the board and when calling for some scraps in your cage. But no, really, like, what is free time? What do I do with it? And, oh, you sweet summer child. What do you know about fear? You know, I have an entire lifetime's worth of existential crises about that very subject ahead of me. But I'm just trying to adhere to what the boss man Lily Tyson said. Just trying to have a little fun.
I think that is pretty amazing, and we are so glad that you're here with us. But, you know, for those vulnerable moments when you really do need a snack, you know my snack drawer here at the office is open to everyone. You know,
There's a snack drawer?
Oh, yeah, I have a snack drawer. I wrote a newsletter greeting all about it a couple months ago and got some recommendations of what to keep in there. So, so we're here celebrating the new year today, and we believe that 2025 could be our best year yet. I'm here with Connecticut Public talk show host Kion Wolf and also Robin Doyon-Aiken, who's our Deputy Director of Audio Storytelling and Talk Shows. And they'll both be staying with me here. And ahead of this episode, we asked our colleagues to share their New Year's resolutions. And here's what our dear friend Kevin shared.
Hey, this is Kevin Chang Barnum, producer for Disrupted. I love creative writing, so one of my resolutions this year is to be more intentional about making time for my writing practice. I had a similar resolution last year as well, so another one of my resolutions for this year is to accept that I don't always complete my resolutions. And that's okay.
Auld Lang Syne, my dear, for auld lang syne. We'll take a cup of kindness yet for auld lang syne.
This is Where We Live from Connecticut Public Radio. I'm Catherine Shen. New year, new you? New Year's resolutions are often about making drastic changes. But as we've learned this hour, it doesn't have to be about those big goals. Connecticut Public editor Cassie Basler shared she's going to get a little crafty in the new year.
All right, so I'm a bit of a magpie for cute paper things like stickers, stamps, postcards, honestly, anything that comes to me through the mail. And this year, my resolution is to start a junk journal. So I have a place to paste in all those cute little things that I would normally probably shove into a drawer and forget about until the next year. So hold me to it. I'm going to start a junk journal and wishing you all a happy new year.
Well, thank you so much, Cassie, for sharing that with us. I am actually starting a junk journal as well, so aligning together by accident. So I'm back in studio with Kion Wolf and Robin Doyon-Aiken. I'm going to jump straight to it. So here's a stat that surprised me a little bit. New Year's resolutions tend to be a bit more popular among young people than older adults, with 49% of adults 18 to 29 making at least one resolution this year, and 59% of adults that have made at least one resolution say that they've kept all of them. And that's according to Pew Research. So when it comes to making goals and sticking with them, I think we touched on this a little bit, but what comes to mind for you? Robin, let's go with you first.
Well, first, I think that's amazing that many people stuck with their goals. Because sometimes there's a thing that happens where, especially when people say they're going to eat healthy,
Right.
Usually you start to see all of the stuff come out in February that's like, oh, already fell off the wagon,
Right.
already had, dessert 10 times this
I mean,
month.
that's why February is my new year.
Yeah, exactly. So I love the idea. And I think it's appropriate that younger people make more resolutions because they're the newbie optimists, they're full of like possibility. And by the time you're like, you've reached you're a little older, you're just so much more forgiving of yourself and
Right.
of the things that you didn't accomplish. It's like, it's okay. I'll adjust. So I love that. And I'm surprised about the number of all those people. I think that's wonderful. Good for them.
Yeah, and it's kind of motivating a little
Yes.
bit, for
Yes.
us to accomplish our goals if we have them. What do you think, Kayan?
Totally. I think you nailed it. And also, like, it's an opportunity. There's this great quote. If you want to become enlightened, lighten up. Lighten up. Lighten up. Let's lighten up on ourselves. You didn't make the goal. You didn't get the intention. You didn't nail it. Fine. This is the whole lifetime is hard. This human thing is weird. Lighten up.
I mean, you're
Life
still
is
going
light.
to shine.
Still going to
regardless,
shine.
right?
No matter how much you've lightened up.
Exactly. And so for our listeners who are listening in, who are still making their goals or thinking about it, how do you suggest they go about forming New Year's resolutions or themes or intentions?
I think you can start at the end. Go to New Year's going into 2026 and work your way back, right? Like, how do you want to tell the story of how 2025 went? How do you want to be proud of yourself? I think that's a great starting point. Start at the end, work your way back.
Yeah. And I encourage people to just like, along the vein of not sticking to one day to make one resolution or whatever, like be inspired by other people's resolutions. Like now I want to be more crafty. I also, like Lily said, now I want to have more fun. Like steal other people's good resolutions whenever you happen to get that inspiration.
I love that because I think I'm already going to walk out of here a different person today. and with got a last question here. I can't believe we're having so much fun. Time flies in a different way when that's happening. But what do you hope our listeners take away from this conversation today? We don't often get a chance to sort of share our personal stories and our goals before this new year. We just felt like this was the way to go. Robin, what do you have to say?
I would say forgive yourself already if you fall a little short of whatever goals you have and make it as easy on yourself as possible. Maybe it's just a list of priorities and you make as much progress as you can and feel good about it. It's okay. We're not being perfect here.
Yeah, lighten up again, and remember your inner child. Maybe name your inner child. Mine's named Oshkosh.
Okay.
Because almost every picture I have of myself as a kid, and again, this is the 80s, so we don't have many pictures of myself, but she's always wearing Oshkosh bagosh overalls. And so remember, name your inner child, let them lead you, lighten up. And this year every year's a bit chaotic, but this year's going to be pretty chaotic, I think. So lighten up, do the best you can. No one knows what they're doing, and take it as it comes.
Well, I think we already have an amazing start here on Where We Live, and I thank you both so much for being here. Kayon Wolf, you can find Audacious on ctpublic.org/audacious or wherever you get your podcast. Thanks, Kayon, for being here.
Thanks for inviting me. This was wonderful.
And also Robin Doyon-Aiken, Deputy Director of Audio Storytelling and Talk Show. Thank you, Robin, for being here too.
Thank you for starting my year off with such joy.
And I know Kayon's gonna kind of throw me off here. I'm Catherine
way.
Shen. Today's show is produced by Tess Terrible. Our technical producer is Dylan Reyes. Download Where We Live anytime on your favorite podcast app. And on behalf of all of us here on Where We Live, happy New Year, and thanks for listening.